So what happens when you take one of the most customizable operating systems on the planet and force a very strong set of opinions on it? Well, you get a huge debate. And that is exactly what's going on right now with Omarchy, a new Linux setup that has people either loving it or absolutely hating it. And this is all coming from the mind of David Heinemeier Hansson, the creator of Ruby on Rails and the founder of 37 Signals. He wasn't content to just use Linux. He wanted to build his absolute perfect tool. And in doing so, he pretty much sparked a firestorm in the open source community. So in this explainer, we're going to break it all down. We'll look at what Omarchy even is, why it got such a huge backlash from purists, dig into the serious security questions that popped up, hear the official defense, and then talk about what this all means for the future. All right, let's dive in. First up, what is this Chef's Choice Linux all about? The entire philosophy is baked right into the name. Omakase is this Japanese term. It actually comes from the world of sushi, where you basically tell the chef, I'll leave it up to you. You're trusting them to pick the best stuff. And that's the whole idea behind Omarchy. Instead of spending forever picking every single component yourself, you trust an expert's curated vision for a system that's ready to go. So what does this chef's choice look like in the real world? Well, it's basically a set of pre-baked configurations sitting on top of Arch Linux, which, if you know Arch, is one of the most flexible do-it-yourself distros out there. It uses a slick, modern interface called Hyperland, and the whole point is to give developers a beautiful, efficient workspace in minutes instead of days. But you can probably guess what happened next. This whole idea of a pre-selected menu, well, it did not go over well with a community that's all about building everything from the ground up. And that brings us right to the purist backlash. See, to really get why people were so upset, you gotta understand what Arch Linux is all about. The entire philosophy is starting with, well, almost nothing. Just a bare-bones system. From that point on, the user makes every single decision, installing only what they specifically need. It's the ultimate form of user control. And this slide right here, it really lays out that core conflict. You've got traditional Arch, which is all about DIY, total user control. It's a project that results in a system that is 100% yours. Then you have Omarchy, which is more like a finished product, a standardized setup designed to get you working right away. You can see how these two ideas were just destined to clash. And the reaction from some longtime Arch users, man, it was intense. We're not just talking about disagreement here. For some, it felt like Omarchy was an attack on the very principles they hold dear. I mean, check out this quote from a Reddit user. Omarchy is the devil. Wow. So what's the devil they're talking about? Well, for a lot of people, it boils down to one word, bloat. And we're not talking about some obscure background services. Nope. Critics were pointing at stuff like Zoom, Spotify, Chromium, popular apps, for sure. But in the Arch world, where minimalism is king, pre-installing anything is seen as a sin because it takes away that fundamental choice from the user. Okay, but this whole debate didn't just stay in the realm of philosophy and pre-installed apps. It quickly escalated into something much, much more serious: security. So the big question people started asking was pretty simple, but absolutely critical. In this big rush to create the perfect, convenient setup, did they cut corners on security? And when technical reviewers started digging in, they found some pretty serious issues. We're talking early versions shipping with the firewall configured, but not actually turned on. OpenSSH was allowed through with some really insecure default settings. And then there's the big one, the classic security no-no: using curl bash for installation, which is basically just grabbing code off the internet and running it without any checks. It was a huge red flag for a lot of people. And this is where things get really messy. Because if you go look at the official Omarchy security manual, it says, clear as day, Omarchy takes security extremely seriously. Firewall is enabled by default. So you have this massive contradiction between what the project's own documentation was saying and what reviewers were actually finding in the code. And that right there became the flashpoint for this whole security debate. So you've got the community fired up about bloat and some really serious security concerns. How did the project respond? Well, that leads us to the 37 Signals defense. DHA's main defense completely reframes the whole project. He basically says, look, you can't judge Omarchy like it's a community distro for Arch purists, because it was never meant to be one. He compares it to Ruby on Rails, another famous 3070 Signals project, saying it's a 30 Signals tool built for their needs first. So that's the whole argument in a nutshell. Omarchy is intentionally opinionated. It's not trying to be your new general-purpose distro. It's a very specific, curated tool built for the developers at 37 Signals. They just decided to share it with the world. And that perspective completely flips the bloat argument on its head, right? When DHH says there's zero bloat here, just everything I use, he's changing the definition. For him, bloat isn't stuff you don't need, it's stuff we at 37 Signals don't need. So to them, having Zoom or Spotify isn't bloat, it's just part of their essential toolkit. And what about for people who actually like the idea but don't want all those specific opinions? Well, the project does offer a few ways out. You can do a bare mode install that strips out all those pre-bundled apps. There's a tool built right into the menu to easily uninstall anything you don't like. And hey, at the end of the day, it's still Arch Linux under the hood, so you have the power to change literally anything you want. All right, so all of this brings us to the bigger picture here, the future of opinion. Because really, this whole Omarchy thing isn't just about one piece of software. It's a perfect snapshot of a huge philosophical battle happening all over the tech world. Think minimalist libraries versus batteries-included frameworks. It's this clash between two really powerful ideas. On one side, you have the freedom of infinite choice, and on the other, you have the promise of productivity that comes from a masterfully crafted expert opinion. And that leaves us with a really big question for the future. What do we actually value more in the tools we use every day? Is it the absolute ultimate freedom to build our own world from scratch? Or is it the focused productivity we get when an expert makes some of those choices for us? There's definitely no easy answer here, but the debate around Omarchy shows that this is a conversation we're going to be having for a long, long time.
Enhance your coding skills with us. Don't forget to subscribe to Code 5 Food for the latest updates and tutorials.